Okay, so this is going to be a simple tutorial of the difference between parent and parent constraint. First, I want to talk about the similarities between those two. So if I have a child cube here, shift select the parent and hit P to parent it. So now as you can see, the child is moving with the parent. The same thing happens with the parent constraint. You just have to select the parent constraint first, shift select the child, and then go to parent. If you don't have the current parent constraint menu, then you have to change this to the rigging section. Constraint, parent, go to the option and just set a reset settings and hit add. So now when I move my parent constraint object, the child is going to move with the parent constraint. So these are the similarities uh, related with the parent and parent constraint. Now I'm going to talk about the main two difference between parent and parent constraint. So if I go to the outliner and if I see here, when I parent my child to the parent object, you can see that there's going to be a hierarchy relationship between those two. The child is going to be underneath the parent. However, when you see the parent constraint object here, you can see that they are independent. They are not the child is not underneath the parent constraint. And here you can see that there is going to be a plus sign created and a parent constraint node that is created underneath the child. And actually this is going to be a connection between the input parent constraint and the output child object here. So I'm going to demonstrate something with the child here. Select the child, set a key on frame 1, and on frame 11 I'm going to just move it up somewhere here and set a key. So now I have both my child here, the parent, and the parent constraint child is going to move up and down. And while this is moving up and down, you can see that when I move my parent, the child is going to move together. There's going to be relationship and there's going to be interaction with those two. However, when I move my parent constraint, the child doesn't move. When I select my child here, and if you see the channel box on the right, before it was set as parent constraint, it's going to be set it as blue color here, but now it's going to turn green. The reason why is because we set a key on the child. And another thing here is the blend parent attribute here. As soon as I have connection with the parent constraint, and if I set a key on the child object, it's automatically going to create a blend parent, which is set to 0 here, which means that 0 means that it's going to just not follow the parent constraint. It's just going to move how the key is set. So as you can see, the child is going to just move up and down. However, when I just break this connection, and if I set this to 1 instead of 0, the child here no longer have the up and down key. Instead, it's going to move with the parent constraint. So when you connect the parent constraint, it's going to either move with the parent constraint object or the keys that is set to the object here. Okay, that's the first difference between parent and parent constraint. And when you want to break the connection with the parent object, then what you can do here is for the parent and child, you can shift P. For the parent constraint, you just have to delete the parent constraint node. Delete that. And I'll just set this back to where it was. Move it. And next is how many parents you can have. So for example, I'll duplicate this. So for example, if I want to parent it with the object here, the child can only just be parented with one object. If I parent it with this one, it's just going to follow this. If I parent with this one, it's just going to follow this, not the other one here on the bottom one. However, when I use my parent constraint, Ctrl D, I can select both my parent constraint and shift select my child and do the parent constraint. And as soon as I do that, before I do that, why don't we just delete the keys what I had here on the chart. So undo this, and I'll just move it back to frame 1, double click, delete the keys on the chart. So select those two parents, shift select the chart, and constraint, parent constraint. As soon as I do that, what happens is that the child is not just following just the first parent, but even it's going to follow the other parent here, the parent constraint object. However, when I move it, it's not following 100%. It's because the child is going to be moving together with those two parent constraint object. You can see from here, you can select this parent constraint node, and on my right you can see that there's two parent constraint object that is connected with the child. And right now both are set to 1, which means that the child is evenly moving with those two parent constraint object. I can set 1 to 0 so that I can just move 100% to the other, just 100% to one of those objects and not following the other. Okay, finally I just want to show you another simple thing here. Just the same thing, but I'm going to do select the parent constraint, select the child, and instead of doing the parent constraint option with the maintain offset turned on, I'm going to disable this and hit add. As soon as I do that, this snaps to the center of the location of both the parent constraint. So whenever I move my parent constraint, the child is always going to be at the center of those two parent constraint parent constraint object. What you can do here is I can set a key so that the child is going to move to one parent constraint object to the other. Simply you have to just select the node here, and on frame 1 I'm going to set one of them to 0 so that it's going to be snapped to one of the object. Set a key, and maybe on frame 11 I'm going to do it in a reverse way. So I'll set this to 1 and set a key. So from frame 1 to 11 you can see that the child is moving from one to the other. And what a good thing about this is that even I can set a key on the parent constraint node. So for example, I set a key here, and on frame 11 I'll just move it to here somewhere. Now what we have here is my child is moving in a curve instead of a straight line, because while it is moving, the parent constraint object is moving together, so there's some different movements going on with the child. Even I didn't set up any keys with the translation and rotation, it's going to have different movements.